asking, the state's already approved 2 full-time positions. He'll be going to the state and requesting a 3rd full-time position. So this budget was built assuming that the state would cover the 3 positions. And of course, if the state doesn't cover those 3 positions, that position will be taken out, but we won't get the revenue for it either. So it's going to be a wash, but we wanted to put in the plan what the real plan was in the sense of 3 full-time and a couple part-times to fill in. So that's why you see the big change. The wage and benefits went up by roughly $197,000, but at the same time the revenue went up by $198,000, roughly the same. So that's the plan now. The sheriff will, and I think the state has a stomach for 3 full-time.
They do. Court security has been a problem this last couple of years. In part, the part-time, it's almost impossible to find part-time court security. The issue is that you just can't take them off the street. They have to pass an academy physical and the alert tests and those things, makes it a little bit problematic. And this is pass-through money. This would give us our 3rd position. And if you look at and the second part of that is that our workforce is aging out. So we're going to have to, I don't know how long, we have a couple now that I don't know how much longer they're going to be doing that. So, Sydney, we can't talk about, but one position out front right now, but is that's a part-time. That was a full-time position. It would be better to manage.
Easier to fill.
Easier to fill. Back in the day, a lot of retired police officers would take those positions. We're not getting them coming to the door.
Jeff, can you speak up a little bit, or I can't really hear you for some reason? I'm not sure.
Microphone right beside you.
That's why. You don't have a microphone.
That will not fit. Try it.
What part would you like me to repeat?
No, keep going, don't repeat anything.
Oh, okay. Well, that works for me. Thank you.
Okay.
So on the courts, you basically say that it's state funded, comes in, goes out, and we're going to pick up an extra person,
I'm
hopefully.
going to request,
Yeah.
2 things I'm going to request from the state this year. One is that additional position, and I'm going to try to, once we got looking at the wage scale, we are way out of line as far as what a state judicial marshal makes, and it is the same training, same job. So I'm going to be asking the state to
Increase.
mirror what they're saying their state federal marshals,
And those
judicial marshals.
those wage rates are incorporated in this.
And then you'll have fights over taking it.
I could only hope.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on courts, 1420 courts? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Any further comment? All in favor? It's a go. Thank you. And county building security, 1421.
That department has gone from 0. That's the position that moved into the courts. It's
That's-
rolled out of courts.
Okay,
So you
so
can see a budget decrease of
Yeah.
58,100,
But that's the same.
unless you don't want to approve that.
Do we need to approve that?
I think we're good. Approves itself. So where am I?
This is the.
So now we're,
Retirement 1450.
I have 1455,
Yes.
all right.
What's that?
Sheriff Administration, 1455.
Yes. What you need to know about 1455 is that captures a lot of deputy costs when it comes to clothing, training, firearms and things like that. So some of the cost increase you see in here is going to be the result of the 5 new officers, okay? So the admin budget increased by 273,000 roughly, or 23% about. About 125,000 of that is associated with those new officers in separate line items that go through the budget. Wage increases, which are encompassed of hourly rate adjustments and normal rate adjustments, account for roughly 62,000 of that. Electricity, like everywhere else, it's gone up. Now, when it comes to heating oil, I use $4.50 across the board. I can change that to the $4 that we use in
Yep.
the other one. Off the top of my head, I do not, because the sheriff's office pays roughly 10% of the cost. You know, the jail gets invoiced it, the sheriff's office doesn't pay the jail, it pays for 10% of that bill. So I would have to calculate that offline. So just saying, I don't know by dropping it to $4 how much of this savings that is to that line, but I will let you know.
But we can go back to that, so.
Yep. So I'll change that to $4. And then the increase in training reimbursement. That training reimbursement is basically for 2 officers. If we hire a deputy from another Maine department, you know, police department or county, and that individual is within the first 5 years of their service, we have to pay that other town or county a payment. This is based on 2 years. On the second year, we would have to pay currently $32,000 for a deputy if we take it from another town or county. So this is for 2 deputies. We're budgeting for 2 deputies that we may get from another county or town. Right. So the difference is we budgeted 2 that way, but we budgeted 2 that we would put to the academy, which you'll see an increase in the training costs, the clothing costs, and things like that associated with the academy. So we're assuming that we're going to get a couple that we have to put through the academy, and a couple that we're not going to have to put through the academy. Okay?
I guess my question with that is, this is 4 new hires?
So in this budget right here, I'm asking for, so last year we had asked for a deputy, which we were going to get through Cops Fest, that we were not awarded that money, that though that capital was put aside, we weren't awarded that money. And it just came open again, and I asked Kristen to reapply. But so one of those deputies would be to fill, so each shift would have 3 deputies. And the additional deputies is, as a result of the state police reorganization, we're picking up somewhere between around 1,500 more calls for service, and we're already stretched to the max. So the workload that our deputies are carrying right now is not, it's not appropriately distributed, because they're just running from call to call. We're not doing anything proactive. And as a result of their work, I do need another detective, where we have 30 open drug cases right now that we just can't get to.
I guess my question is, with respect to that, are these 4 new positions, or are these positions that have not been filled as well, and we're just refunding them.
Well, the position that we currently have open,
How many?
we're actually utilizing some of your personnel funds that, basically, he's been paid because we've lost several deputies to other towns and counties.
Right.
They had to pay us.
I understand.
Yeah, we set that money
Yeah.
aside to cover the current people the current positions.
So is that the 32,000 that you set aside per position that you were talking about before?
Yes.
Because if we have to pay out, that pay-in should go to
Our
pay out.
our last deputy was from Winslow, and we had to pay that out.
Yeah. Yeah, so I know, it works both ways.
It does.
We pay out, they pay in, and it's been quite a shuffleboard these last few years.
But it has been, I mean, the last commission was gracious enough to, we had never set an account for this, but it is our reality.
Yeah.
Our deputies were leaving to go to, we've lost quite a few to other agencies, and I sent them bills, they paid, which they had no choice but to pay, but that money was sitting there. So there was, as you well know, there was conversation with the last commission to set up an account with that money coming in so that we would in turn, if we could, reciprocate and try to get a deputy from another community.
Exactly, which is smart. It's a good way to go. But I guess the other thing is, we have open positions now,
Yes.
and we're having a hard time recruiting, and we want to have 4 more positions?
So it's-
We're
Yeah, so that's two different issues, right? I believe that the inability to attract and retain positions right now is due that we are the lowest paid in Somerset County. So you can go to work for another agency and make $5 or $6 more, $7 more an hour to do a less job because of the volume of work we have. That's one issue, right? Those are the open positions we have. The other issue is the volume of work that our deputies are handling, and we're asking to take on another 2,000 calls.
Oh, no, I understand that. I understand the volume and the workload has increased. I'm just very worried that we're not able to get the recruits.
Well,
And
I think that when we adjust the wages so that we're competitive, we will get the candidates.
And a lot of that adjustment is going to determine upon how we work with the unions.
Yes, sir.
And that's ongoing right now.
Yes, sir.
So you need to hire what, 4 to fill what you have for vacancies now, or 5?
I have
2 vacancies. 4 1 and 4.
I have 4 vacancies right now.
4
And the 5 that are on this sheet is on top of that?
on top of
That is
that, yeah. Yeah, and that's gonna, jump your budget up, 1.8 million or somewhere in
Yeah,
that area?
it is.
Who jumps it up?
I know there's one municipality that's happy to see this. It's not Fairfield, but there's another one out there.
But at this point, our proactive work is really not what it should be, just because they're running from call to call to call.
I'm just going to interject on that a little bit because I've done a little bit of due diligence and wanted to see a vision put to what we're hearing. So I've ridden with deputies, and it's a nightmare. That night I was riding, there were 3 deputies on, one to Madison unless in case of emergency, and only 2 others covering the rest of the county. Literally, get a call, 8 calls, 9 calls, 10 calls, in between that call, going to the next call. Okay, and then the other 2 deputies, as I'm sitting in the truck and they're dealing, the deputy I was with dealing with calls, were dealing with the very same thing. So January, February, we're averaging
We're averaging about, the last week it was 368 calls.
368 calls for 2 deputies per shift, sometimes 1, because 1 has to be in Madison. So, I mean, I'm concerned about the money cost of this as well, but having seen things go down and doing what I've done, and not having the state PD at all. Yes, you guys see their vehicles on the rural roads once in a while, on Route 2, but they're doing totally just traffic detail.
So I receive a weekly report, and they now call it the Central Field Troop. There's no more Troop C and D, I think they combined them. But I receive each week a report from the state police, from the Central Field Division. The 2 weeks prior, they had no activity in Somerset County. The third week, they had 1 traffic stop with someone who was under suspension. But they're not responding to house calls. 2 weeks ago, they were running a detail in Madison. There was a crash on the other side in Anson. The trooper stood by and asked for a deputy to respond to cover the crash.
Yeah, the state troopers stood by.
What's that?
There was a state trooper that stood by.
Yeah, the state trooper stood by while we waited for a deputy to come
Yeah.
to take care of the crash.
Yeah.
So that equates into what we talk about when we talk about, these positions. The other thing that I want to bring up is, and I've talked to constituent base a lot about this, just to get what their response time has been when they've called 911. And on average, and I've talked to over 100 constituents in my community, and those that had to call 911 waited an average of 30 to 45 minutes a call for a deputy to respond. And that shortens up a lot, and I'll give you an example that goes right by my house every day. I don't think there's a week that goes by that there's not at least 10 or 15 calls of the deputies flying by my house in St. Albans. So if they're concentrated in one area and have to handle that, then it's, keeping them from other things. And it's just too much for them to prioritize calls and be proactive, report the way that they need to, and cover the county the way they need to, with even the 4 or 5 current positions that aren't filled. This avails them the opportunity, I think, to extend and have the overnight shift again.
Well, so,
That's not addressing my question, though. Continue, sorry.
so if we're fortunate to receive these additional headcount, we will be then looking at how the scheduling to try to reduce the call-out time. The call-out time, if they get called out for 15 minutes, they get 4 hours of pay by contract. So if you have enough resources, you can arrange the manpower to try and reduce your overtime costs. That's part of my plan.
Having said what I've said, though, I think the priority needs to be the 5 positions that, or 4 or 5 positions that aren't filled. You'd agree with that?
No, absolutely. I mean, we have, again, presently we have 30 drug cases and we can't get to them.
So when we look forward to maybe the possibility of approving this for those extra deputies and the detective, is it reasonable to say that that could be done over a period of time and not all at once?
Yes, sir. They're not all going to come, they're not all going to be lining up at the door. There's going to be a process.
So how would that structure the change of the budget in terms of what you're asking for if we were able to do it that way and focus just on those current positions that need to be filled at a competitive wage?
Well, when we sign if the commissioners approve the FOP contract through the negotiation process, I think we'll be in a better place to hire, and then we're going to aggressively start looking for deputies to fill those positions. Now, at what rate that we're able to fill that, That's anyone's guess right now.
Have we been looking at the other FOP contracts from the other law enforcement agencies? Just to compare them and see what the field is out there?
Right, you can have offline conversation with Commissioner Johnson and Seekins, and there has been a lot of research gone into this.
Yeah, because I don't want to stress the taxpayer anymore by paying for positions that we can't fill, when we have positions that aren't filled already. I'd love to see I'd love to have them all filled. It'd be great, but I don't know that it's going to happen overnight. I don't have a problem with another detective. I think that's very well needed and probably easier to fill than these patrols.
But when you don't fill a patrol officer, all that does is roll into your undesignated fund balance, and you use it to offset the next year's taxes. So by not filling them, you're not burdening the taxpayer per se, because they get
This
money
year.
back.
This year.
Yeah,
This year we are. We're burdening them
Right.
now, today. And when the burden is heavy, I don't want to make it heavier if we can't produce our goal.
Well, I think when we develop competitive wages, I think we will be able to fill our goal. Again, how rapid that transpires, I mean, but we'll be in a lot better position. Two of those positions, one of them is a UT position, which is a pass-through. The other one is the Madison SRO. And I don't know what Madison's going to do right now as far as how, I don't know what their budget process is or what they're going to ask for or what they're going to pay for deputies.
Derek, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So right now, if everything worked according to your plan, we would be having 9 new people working, filling the 4 existing vacancies and then 5 new positions. Is that right?
Correct.
And
Again,
5 new positions, one is the Madison SRO and the other one is the UT. So in effect, you're really asking for funding for 3 new, from the county to fund 3 new positions, because the others are sort of taken care of by Madison and the state.
Well, not yet.
No.
Not yet.
Is that the way it works?
No, so I have a head count right now, and out of the present head count, I have 5, one being a SRO, one being a UT, but it still has to be counted in the vacancies for the head count.
Right.
What I'm asking above my present head count is 4 more positions, 3, well, actually 5, right? So one would to round off one of the shifts so that they would have an equal amount of deputies. And so then I want to add 1 more deputy per shift with a detective from the work that needs to be done.
And I'm just sort of curious, is there any sort of statewide, at the county level, pushback against the state police for just basically bailing out of their traditional law enforcement?
Well, so they're not going to,
responsibilities?
they're not going to tell you they're bailing out, but they reorganized. So they did not increase their head count, but they filled their specialties. They have a midnight patrol on the interstate, and just by refocusing their mission, it reduces head count to the county. I had a conversation with the troop commander at the time, who's no longer the troop commander, but he told me that if there was a town near the interstate that needed help, they might come off and help.
So,
But is anyone competing to with Lebanon or anything?
well, so,
Good luck with that one.
so
One other thing.
right now, there are 3 bills in the legislature. Next week, I have a meeting with Commissioner Shawshuck and the Colonel to talk about our roles. And then further in the week, I have a meeting with the legislature leadership to talk about funding for rural patrol outside of property tax. There are 3 bills presently in front of the legislature. 2 are from Penobscot County. They're flat out asking for, I think it was like $1 million to add on to their patrol because they need deputies. One of the bills is from the MCCA. It's a concept draft that I'm working with MMA to look at a revenue source outside of property tax to fund those positions. The issue is the counties don't want to get into the same predicament that they do with the jails, where the state pays 20%, but feel they have 51% of the say. Those are the conversations that are going on right now. A couple of you have been with the legislature, you know that's unpredictable on how that will turn out. The leadership will be meeting with the majority of the House and the Senate. I think there's, the people that signed on to the bill, the MCCA bill, are known as heavy hitters within their party, and so I don't know whether something will come of that or not, but those are the discussions that are going right now. The state police will be very upfront and tell you that they will honor whatever commitments they've made, but again, it's a basic math problem. You cannot do more with the same people and not have a reduction someplace else, and that's what's happening. And the reason they're not, the reason that they're not saying that they're changing their mission or their focus is because they're worried about their funding and their head count.
And I was wondering whether we should shoot ourselves in the foot by always, increasing our staffing level to the point where we create sort of a whole new alternative to the state police rural patrol, and then the state looks at us and says, well, you don't need any help from the state because you were successfully doing it yourselves at taxpayer expense, so we don't need to help you out at all. That's a discussion we have with Ron.
Right, so we're not looking to compete with the state police funding. The state police are funded through a general fund and a highway fund. And there's been some issues there. To your point, that the need is now, and how they fund it down the road. One of the proposals that MMA had brought up, which it seems to be getting some legs, is that it has to do with the real estate tax transfer. It hasn't been adjusted since the 80s. We also, the county does all the work, but the county only gets 10% of that money. So there's some talk there. The uphill battle, so to speak, will be that 50% of that money that the state takes from the county goes to people in need of housing. So there's a lot of conversations going on right now, but as far as the state coming back to us and saying, well, you don't need our help anyway, they've already decided to change their mission. They're already heading down. They're not going to turn around.
When the state police, one of their problems is that they haven't been able to recruit either, so this restructuring is somewhat based on a lack of being able to get personnel. So it's more of a retrenchment than restructuring, but that's my words. The other issue that we're going to have is that the state police has already provided pushback at the hearing Monday for the Penobscot bill of $1.5 million to fund the patrols, and then another $1 million on top of that to sustain it for 2 years. The state police basically said, county budget is for county functions, and that's where it should stay, which means no state money from any other quarter to counties. So we have that pushback. That's a concern as well. The MCCA is working on the concept draft, as the sheriff has previously mentioned, that will hopefully bring in all the counties to have, even in perhaps a prorated manner, some state monies. Deeds has been one of the sources. The marijuana tax has been another one of the sources. And then I think there's even a bill to provide counties and municipalities, or actually municipalities with their own income or tax structure for sales tax. And I believe MCCA and MMA have supported that with a caveat that goes to counties as well, that the counties can incorporate their own tax structure. These have been, rules have been floated before and died, so I don't know what's going to happen.
So just for the both of you, so there is plenty of weed money out there,
Yes, we know.
okay? It's actually in their outreach advertising budget. They said last year, we have millions of dollars we don't know how to spend.
Right.
So keep that one in your cap.
I will, thank you.
Yeah.
I
Keep that one.
actually testified 2 years ago to get some of that
Yeah.
funding.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they literally, the people from that department said, we have no idea what to do with this money, we're spending as much as we can. And it's not tens of millions, but it's probably a couple $1 million a year.
Right.
On top of that, I do have a question. Bringing the wages up to a competitive rate, I heard early on, could save us money in the future because we're not retraining new hires.
Right. Whenever you can get an academy graduate, you have to do due diligence, because you don't know why. There's a myriad of reasons why people leave. But if everything is copacetic and you can get an academy grad, you're saving yourself a lot of money. Only because you don't have, the academy itself isn't the big cost. I mean, that's, I think, somewhere between $2,500 and $5,000 by the time you buy all the equipment. The cost of backfilling of that position, and plus you get a fully trained officer. So what they call a green pinner, or one that isn't fully academy trained, is limited on what they can do for duties statutorily.
I think what you meant was there'd be less turnover, so we won't incur the cost of buying.
Retraining. Right, basically, I mean, that's been one of the, I guess, one of the arguments with being more competitive with wages is we're not gonna have the turnover, not to have the, the added training. Is there, and of course, I mean, we're just, we're maybe waving a magic wand here more than anything, is there a reflection in the budget to sort of offset that? I mean, if we're looking to add more people and raise wages,
Maybe
then we should be anticipating less possible training.
in future budgets, yes, I agree with that, but we still need to fill the positions we have currently.
I don't have any problem with that.
I probably didn't ask it very well. So at the same time then, if we're putting money in to do that, are we adjusting the training budget?
Like I said, in future budgets, this is going to be the transition year. This is when we try to hire people and get them trained, and then going future, retain them. So by resetting the wage to a competitive wage, that's the hope. So I don't see that you can cut training this year associated with the officers, but in future years, because of the retention, you should see a reduction in training and see a reduction in the buyout line.
So the wage increase is more about retention as opposed to attracting already trained?
Both.
Both.
So if we're trying to attract already trained people, then,
Well, we're trying to attract people, period.
well,
So we're the lowest paid in central Maine by far.
yeah, oh, I completely understand. I'm just, I'm just, if we're trying to achieve
Right.
keeping people or hiring people, if we don't have to train as much, then,
Help with our retention, and if you're able to retain your employees, your cost for buying new equipment, new gear, training to the academy, that line should go down.
and when does that happen?
Hopefully you see it next year.
We could start maybe next year. But you need it in place this year to accomplish that goal.
I have a question. You mentioned the SRO in Madison.
Yes.
Well, it says on here that we removed the SRO position.
It's currently open in this budget. The position is in this year's budget. That's why it's open, there's no one in.
That's under the,
Next
that would be
year-
under the new hires.
No.
But Madison has to approve that,
Two
right?
different things. You were talking about the existing open positions,
Yeah.
which the SRO is one. In next year's budget, with the understanding from Madison, we removed the SRO position. So next year, that position, based on their current plan, unless they come back and say they want an SRO, but the current plan is they're gonna go with 3 deputies and a person in the office without the SRO.
A 32-hour person in the office. So when we met with the town manager, I mean, he cannot speak for the board. Well, he can speak for the board, but I mean, he can't make decisions for the board. They were going to have a discussion whether they wanted to carry over that SRO position or use that money to fund the deputies, understanding that the cost of the deputies were going to be going up, just for payroll alone.
Yeah, right.
Bless you.
Bless you.
The other part of just personnel is also equipment,
Yes.
and the bigger part of that, aside from uniforms and guns and whatnot, is the cars, the outfitting of the cars, or the vehicles rather, because we don't know if it's going to be a car or a truck. But for those vehicles, you want 5 new vehicles?
Yep.
Or, I mean, and that's brand new, that's not just replacing.
Right, that's.
These are in addition to.
That's the cost to those positions, yes. sir.
Yeah, so there's another potential burden on taxpayers that may not be fulfilled. The other thing I wanted to ask you about that is, we had ordered some vehicles earlier. Did they ever come in?
So, I haven't had new vehicles,
Yeah.
the last 2 budget cycles.
I thought we had some on order.
Well, yeah, sort of. We originally was gonna go with the Tahoe platform, because of the heavy dutiness of it. Our local Chevy dealer said that they couldn't get their hands on them anymore.
Because we accepted that bid.
That's right, last year.
Yeah,
We then worked with the Ford dealership, and we're going to be going to the Ford Explorer. It's a little smaller than the Tahoe, maybe a little bit of gas mileage. I was just notified last week that I can expect 4 in April. My repair costs are right off the chart. Our trucks are now have well over 100,000 miles on them, and it just,
Oh, I know, that's where my concern was. I knew that we had ordered some
It's a
trucks,
concern.
and we hadn't gotten them, and I was just wondering what that status was, and I realized that we need to replenish the vehicles. So I understand that. Have you looked at the Dodge platform?
have not.
I don't know if they're still doing that grant that they were providing their trucks at, I think it was half price. I know that Fairfield had picked up a couple.
Right. I wasn't aware that Dodge was doing that.
Yeah,
In part, the problem with changing, so we were going to these Ford Explorers, moving away from the pickup trucks, but personally, if you have one or two trucks, I think it's okay to have the whole fleet. They have so much gear now that they lose, and I know it's not popular amongst the deputy, but you lose everything in the body, what you can put in the truck. And they put Tahoe, the covers on the back of the truck, but the dust still gets in there.
Oh, I see.
The gear. I think and once you buy like the innards or the consoles and the light bars and all that go with a certain vehicle, if you change to a different platform, you have to buy all brand-new consoles that you can't move one console to another console. It's strange, but that's how it is.
oh, no, I know
And they
that,
change from year to year sometimes.
that too. And I don't know if the Dodge program just related to trucks. It may be other types of vehicles, but it's worth looking into if it's going to save 50% of the cost.
Right. You do, for county patrol, you do need a heavier duty type vehicle just because our roads are not all paved. And once you get into the,
I know that we're not going to go to Jettas anytime soon, but
But I can't ever remember the Dodge dealership ever submitting a bid.
the Dodge dealership has never submitted a bid that I know of. I just know that Fairfield entered into this program with Dodge, and they did very well by it. Granted, they don't have the miles that we
It's
do.
strange, because all owned by the same family, that's why.
Well, let's see, you've got Hartley and Gauntz for your Dodges in the area.
Yeah,
That's right, you have Height up here too. They have submitted bids.
they have.
Heights up here.
Only for the correctional vehicles, never for the
Okay.
FOP,
All right. Yeah,
for the transfer.
but anyway,
Walter still runs the buttons down there.
so, I'm just exploring, trying to save the county money to get you into a vehicle, so things can work.
I would love a vehicle. I haven't had an.
Don't care what the sticker is on it.
On the last two budget cycles, I haven't been able to get a vehicle.
Yeah, no, I know.
So if you're just getting the 4 new vehicles that were on previous order, how would you expect to get these other ones?
Well, so I had a conversation with Sam. He said that Ford is going to make them, by the fall of 2023, these vehicles are, the COVID thing is going to be passed, or the, whatever problems they've had, that they're going to be able to turn these vehicles over faster. And I think he told me that he had ordered 10, so that he would have vehicles when we need vehicles. He wasn't gonna wait for us to order them. He was gonna, because he said he can get rid of them. He's just gonna order 10
Police packages?
police packages.
I think you're 10 behind.
Huh?
I think you're 10 behind.
I'd like to get
I do too, but,
But I think, I was told that a batch of 4 are going to be coming in April.
4 in April?
That's what I'm being told. Now, I wouldn't want to put my hand on the Bible on that, but that's what I was told.
Yeah. So, I'm still concerned about the impact on the budget with the assumption of hiring and purchasing, especially in this climate.
What's a ballpark figure? You know, you take your five, I just asked a question here. If we said, well, 5, we can't do 5, but we could do 2 or 3. I mean, we could do this incrementally over a number of years. If you add the salary, the training, the vehicle, and the pistol, and the bulletproof vest, what is the total sort of cost per new hire that we'd be saving by eliminating or reducing the number that you've requested to a lower number?
We had originally come up with 150,000. That number, according to Penobscot's calculation, is 250,000 per officer.
That's fully encumbered.
That's fully encumbered, right?
That's with the vehicle.
Yeah, yeah. So,
$250,000 per. $250,000 per?
$250,000 per, fully encumbered. Correct, thank you. And then, $1 million biennium, or $500,000 per year after that.
That is correct. Approximately, that's
Yeah.
right in the ballpark.
How does that happen?
I kind of lost that. The $500,000 is, what's the $500,000 about?
That's the $500,000 after the encumbrance for the next year, going forward. It drops down, no, it's a million for 2 years.
Right.
So,
It's $1 million for 4 new positions.
no, fully encumbered, it's $2 million.
No, it's,
Okay.
no,
And then we got
No, I'm sorry.
Let's get the math, guys.
It's $1 million fully encumbered for 4. It's 250,000 per fully encumbered. That means officer, outfit,
Vehicle.
vehicle. And we haven't even got the gas yet. Or repairs. So that's your upfront cost. And then going forward, it's $500,000 per going forward. Not quite $500,000, actually, it's more
Well,
like,
I guess the question should be asked is, I mean, Sheriff, is it, when you put these numbers together and wanted 4 new patrol officers, did you have a little person in the back of your mind saying, well, if I can get 2, I'll be happy, or if I can, I can live with less, or I could do this spread out over time, or is there an urgency here that cannot be ignored? I don't know, I'm new to this, so I'm just asking.
so, no, good question. I personally don't believe in ballooning budget. I mean, I'm a taxpayer in this county too. I'm just looking at, what I'm looking at is our volume of work and the human resources that we put towards it. And we are in a huge deficit as far as doing any proactive policing. Now, if the commission, I'm telling you what I need. If the commission comes back to me and says, can we do this incrementally? I mean, clearly we have to work together. I'm telling you what my need is. How we get there is the plan.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Just to give you a little light of year after and year after that. We're already looking at roughly 13 or 14% increase in FY 2025 and 26. 25, we're going to have to deal with the jail cap. We're going to be at a point where we're going to have to go to the legislature and ask for a cap increase. And then in 26, you're basically out of your undesignated fund balance, out of ARPA money and everything, and you're going to get another hit because that's going to be the third year of the current contracts. So it's, I understand about pushing it forward, but keep in mind, if you fund half of it now and then try to put it in the next couple of years, you're already looking at close to 13%, 14%. It's just informational.
Yes.
We'll get to that when we look at the big picture.
Mike,
So, speaking of the big picture, I have a kind of stupid question, but Patrick, if we agree to all of the proposals, budget proposals that are set forth in this, in all the departments, countywide, we agree to everything, without any reduction, what does that mean for the average Somerset County taxpayer? I mean, how does that going to affect everyone? Is it
18%.
huge increase, a minor increase?
Well,
Huge.
the thing is, this year, we're getting the benefit of the corridor, okay? So the valuations jumped in several of the towns and locations because of the corridor. Our mill rate, last budget, was, I think it was $2.24 per mill. This current budget, unchanged, is sitting at 2.41, so $2.41. So that's a 17 cents increase. So if you just take a $200,000 house, 17 cents increase, you're looking at $34 increase in taxes for someone that owns a property of 200,000.
that's just the county, that doesn't count
Okay.
personal.
Right.
It doesn't count the school or the town itself.
Yeah, there's the three
It's
buckets.
a county tax.
Correct.
And that doesn't necessarily impact each municipality equally.
Yes, it does. It's based on that.
Oh, yes.
Now, if their valuation went up, yeah, they're gonna get a bigger chunk, but they
Right.
should have a bigger valuation to absorb it.
Well, valuation doesn't necessarily
Doesn't-
equate into income to be able to pay the bill.
What I was
Exactly.
thinking.
And that's where
Exactly.
we're at,
Right.
is the burden on the taxpayer, being able
Right.
to pay
Yeah,
for
but-
things that they can't pay for.
The majority of the increases for CMP property, so the CMP would be paying, actually accounting for majority of the increase.
But isn't the majority of that CMP corridor actually in UT?
No.
No.
Even if it's in the UT pays a portion of county tax.
Well, I know that, but they're not paying everything. And we are helping with our UT officer, and hopefully they'll,
The UT accounts for 15% of our budget. They pay for 15% of the total budget.
okay.
So just trying to, I guess, sum this up. As far as personnel are concerned, we're dealing with raises, to try to fill 4 empty slots, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then 5 additional
Yes, sir.
personnel on top of that, so 9, okay.
And equipment.
Right. $250,000 pop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how we steer away from the increases in the wages.
I don't think you can.
So I think that, I mean, for me, okay, that's basically, that's off the table, because I don't know if there's anything that we can do about it. So then the only thing that we have anything to do about at that point in time is the 5 new positions.
Well, you deal with the
Right.
4 empty ones first.
Well, no, what I'm saying, I'm talking about funding.
Yeah.
Right, oh, yeah, well, that's, right.
No, we fund the 4 empty ones, because we do want to fill those.
Right.
I mean, that's priority.
How much money we
the
got left from not
5 new
funding
ones.
in the past?
Funding them, well, this year, Well, some of the open positions, you have to realize, two of the open positions at UT, those UT funds stay with UT.
Yeah,
Didn't we just hire UT?
yeah.
Just now, but
Just
this
now.
is the first one this year.
And two of them are funded Madison, right?
While they fall under patrol.
Patrol, yeah.
So, you know, like, two of those positions, you're not gonna get the savings, because that goes right back to the UT. The UT uses that to offset their budget.
I think one of the other things that kind of is in the back of my mind when we talk about this, and there's no easy way to come to how we're gonna do, but, you know, if we look at this in terms of keeping on going the way we are, as versus getting properly equipped with the right amount of personnel, I really feel like there could be phenomenally much more cost than that to the county in legal issues and situations if we're not putting on the ground as far as patrol and people we need to cover what we've lost from the state PD, to cover a ridiculous amount of calls per week. And right now, the average in January and February is 300 and probably 50-ish if we give that number. This is the winter time. Expect that to double and triple when spring hits.
Oh, especially in the UT.
So you've got to
No
cover it
question.
somehow. I
No.
mean, and the other thing for me is that we've got to the point where I think this can has been kicked far enough down the road, so it's gonna hurt however we try to fix it.
Well, the problem being is, at this point in time in history, is, you know, if we're increasing the budget by 15 or 20%, every taxpayer out there, their own personal budgets are also being increased by 15, 20% or more, fuel costs, on and on and on.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I go back to, I think, prioritizing the positions that are already budgeted for with a competitive increase, and then working on building from that.
Right.
But you still, you know, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know, and so that's where we're at. And I feel public safety, which is hurting in a lot of other areas, and I could go into detail on the things I've heard about ambulances, but that's for another situation. Public safety is the core of your functioning county. It has to be at its top notch.
This head count gives us, so excluding Madison, which we have to assign a deputy to Madison every shift. But this would give us 1 sergeant and 3 deputies working in the county. This addition.
The Madison deputy is paid for by Madison.
That's right. That's why
Well, that's what-
we're obligated to fill.
That's-
They pay additional money outside of taxation, out of county taxation.
Right.
To have an active patrol.
Right,
And they have the number of calls of service they need it.
right. Right, we appreciate that, but I just don't count them as a county patrol officer because they're dedicated to Madison, even though they are hired by the county.
Right. We are obligated to put a
Right.
deputy in Madison a
So-
shift.
But it's not a specific deputy, it rotates.
No, I know, that's, which is
Okay.
good. It's not only good for the personnel, it's good for training, because they get the different aspects of things. But still, it's a sheriff, a deputy dedicated to Madison, paid for by Madison, so we know that we have that position, if not made up of different people.
So is it basically this time, I'm sorry. I
No, go ahead.
didn't realize you were in the, so is it basically this time next year, we revisit this again as far as, do we need even more than, you come up with another proposal of how many heads that you're gonna need based on the conditions, that sort of thing. So we're basically 1 year out from doing this again. Does that
Maybe.
sound right?
Well,
Right.
maybe,
Okay.
maybe not, right? I mean, if that additional deputy per shift, right? So remember, one of those deputies is to make a shift complete. That additional deputy per shift, I believe would be adequate and let us do proactive work. If that makes sense. We're responding, we're just responding to calls now. And, so I wouldn't be back here next year asking for more headcount.
If you got all 5 now.
Right.
Right. But what I'm saying, I guess where I'm leaning, I think Alsop talked about it a little bit, and I think it was probably just throwing a number out there, but, so in this situation, it feels like, you know, the increases for the, you know, to hopefully fill those 4 positions, and then an additional 2 positions on top of that, and then 11, 12 months from now, we're talking about an additional 2 or 3 more, whatever is called for at that point.
It's hard to hire 5 when you've got 4 vacancies,
You're looking at filling 9 positions that are,
positions, yeah.
even though, I mean, the pay is going to be increased, so we'll, you know, we'll be a little bit more competitive, but still, it's,
I could go for 2.
I think I'm leaning more towards the 2 myself.
So that'd be a detective position and a patrol division, a patrol deputy to round out.
I would actually ask for your recommendation on that, what you need. The most.
We haven't had an increase in the detective division since we put on Jeremy to do the child sex cases that specifically do against crimes against persons. But my immediate need, I wouldn't come with you, but if I have to give, which I'm having to give, I need a detective, and I need another deputy to round out to complete the shifts. And I would be back next year for the other 3.
I'd rather see you do that.
Incremental.
And we would have to, the first thing we'd be looking at next year is whether we've been successful in filling the complement up. It would be full, you know, we don't have this problem now of having 4 empty spaces there. So, I mean, if next year, you were fully staffed and asked for more, that would make more sense, I think, to us than the present situation. Asking for 5 more than 4 are actually unfilled.
And you know,
I think that's-
thinking this through, maybe next year, might have been some legislative action, state legislative action to help augment the funding of it.
Well, I reading this earlier, I served on a mental health agency for years, and we always prided ourselves in we're always fighting the state for funds, and we always prided ourselves on being very efficient and really doing a lot with a little. And as a result of that, the state said, well, we're going to keep your reimbursement rate really low, and we're not going to pay you much money because you clearly are very efficient, and our sister agencies were very inefficient, got more money than we did, which is vexing. And I'm sort of, as a result of that, I'm thinking, you know, do we want to demonstrate to the state that we are perfectly capable of taking care of all our needs on our own without their help? I don't know if that's sort of a political question, but
It is a political question, and it is my hopes, after all these upcoming negotiations, that some sort of resolution is developed that allows the county to receive additional monies outside of property tax.
That'd be great.
Well, this was what I was considering originally when we entered into this conversation, was that you get your detective, we continue the 4 that are open to try to fill those 4 spots, but extend to 2 more patrol officers. That would, so it would be 3 instead of 2
I will take 5.
I know you take 5.
But,
It looks like everybody else wants 2, so
1 and 1.
1 and 1.
Detective, one.
One detective, one new patrol.
That's, okay.
Not 3, 2.
Yeah, I was going to give him the detective, and hopefully we'll be able to get the other 2 patrols. But I know that's 6 that we'd have to fill. I'm sure that the detective could be filled post-haste, but I don't know.
Yeah, the detective would be, if I had the funding, the detective would be filled tomorrow. Because
Okay.
you don't hire a detective outside the agency, they come from within.
Right, and then that's going to make us, give us another opening.
Well, there is a trickle-down effect of all of that.
Okay, so 1 and 1 is it? Because the opening would make 2.
I do need that deputy to fill out so that
Right.
there's a sergeant and 2 deputies working
Yeah.
on patrol.
So that's where I'm at.
1 and 1,
1 and 1.
yeah.
One and one, yeah.
1 and 1.
And I'm going to be back next year, so.
We hope to see you.
Lord willing.
We hope to see you again in 2 weeks.
What
Yeah,
happens
2 weeks
here?
would be good.
We're going to find out about that. You can ask.
Well, I didn't know if that was appropriate.
That's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a,
I do have a question for a little, so I have asked, so we were denied the COPS Fast grant.
yes.
Would you all entertain, I'd asked Kristen to start that process to try, see if we're successful a second time. Last budget, we held that capital, right, Patrick? That we have that capital, right? And that's sitting there right now, that hasn't been touched. If we're successful in getting a COPS Fast grant, would you allow me to do that? Outside the 1 and 1?
The COP Fast grant would cover 75% of the labor costs associated with a detective, not detective, patrol officer for up to 125,000. So they give you 3 years to spend it, but chances are you would cover it in 2.
So that's using
I'd be in
that,
favor of that.
that's using that money if you get that grant plus what's in the capital, is that what you're saying?
No, so,
To cover another deputy?
That'll be your next
so
year's
what I've heard today is you've offered me, you're going to allow me to get 1 deputy, 1 detective. Last year, I was going to be able to get a deputy, right? But I had to do it through the COPS Fast process. So, but COPS Fast grants do not cover capital, right? The capital's the gun.
Vehicle and the-
all that stuff. So that capital was set aside.
Only capital for the vehicle.
Right, if I was successful. I was not successful in getting that grant. Kristen, one of the executive secretaries at the office, has told me that that grant has come open again. And they said, but she said that the award would not come until after June 30th. So if I could have got it before June 30th, I would have added it because we'd already budgeted for it. But I need to come to you and ask if you would allow me to continue with that process.
And the grant covers 75% of the cost of labor for 1 year, 2 years?
No, the grant, at least the last one we had, was 125,000 for an officer.
So depending on what the,
And they would cover.
is it just labor, is it benefits as well, or?
Labor and benefits.
Okay,
It's
so
just the cost.
payroll.
So, the way our wages work, usually goes into usually get close to 2 years out of it, maybe 3, but with the increase in wage,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would assume it's only gonna be like the
Right.
first 2 years.
Right.
Then during the 3rd year, on the 3rd year, you would have to pick up the full cost of that. Yeah.
And I'm assuming to apply for the grant, you have to have the okay ahead of time? To apply for the grant, you have to have the okay ahead of time? Or you just don't want to waste the time if you don't have?
That's just a good question. Well, they've already approved it last time that I didn't get, that you guys did approve the capital part of
Right.
that. But when I add headcount, I have to get permission from the commissioners to do that.
Okay. And between between the grant process, possible approval, all that sort of thing, we're looking, what kind of timeline are we looking at? It's going to be,
Well, I think it wouldn't be till late this fall. Don't hold me that, but
it wouldn't be earlier than that.
okay, that's what it was this last time. Late this fall would be whether they would.
So we would be close to revisiting this anyway, and I think in our conversation, we've already pretty much determined that we're going to build upon the numbers that we're putting in today.
That's why I
mean-
asked the question. But I'd have to get. I'd have to
Good
get
preparation,
approval.
yeah. I don't have any problem with it.
I don't, I need it good.
I think you could have the number, but I don't know that we're willing to give you the fundings, if the funding is going to come from the COPS Fast grant.
Well, only 75% of the labor costs. The counties still have to cover 25% of the labor cost and then all the incidental costs.
Yeah, we already have the incidental for that, for the last COPS grant. that's what
Capital,
we-
you don't have the gun, holster, clothing, everything tied to the officer that they don't cover.
Yeah,
The capital is sitting in the capital account.
right.
Is there also a deadline on how quickly you need to use that grant? Okay.
It's usually within 3 years.
Oh, so, I mean, by the time the next budget process comes in, too easy. Okay.
Right.
Plenty of time there between that.
Unless they
Good
change
time.
it.
No,
It was 3 years. It was 3 years, and they actually said we could get
an extension.
an extension.
Okay, so you basically just need an okay, you don't need anything put into a funding stream anywhere?
Well, so if, well, I want to.
Asking for money, yeah.
If it was approved late this fall that you got the COP Fast grant, I'd be coming telling you that we got the grant. So the question is, do you want to keep that capital stuff, money that we already have in place in anticipation of that? Or do you want to wait till the next budget cycle to accept it?
I'd just as soon keep the capital in place.
And the
Myself,
Do we know what
In
is that?
anticipation.
Do you have a rough idea what that is?
Capital associated with that? I know a vehicle now is right around 90 grand fully outfitted. I would have to look to see what was put aside.
So somewhere around 100 grand, give or take.
It could, I would have to look at these, I don't have
Yeah.
it. I like giving them exact.
I can tell.
Okay, so we're doing 2 and 1 COP Fast grant, leave the capital in place.
Okay, so you want to put a cost fast head in
Well, could,
yeah,
here.
we'd have to do it
You
now.
want to add the additional 25% of the wages
Yes, we
to
do.
this?
Yeah, we do.
If we're going to do the
If we're
COPS
gonna
Fast
get it
grant
fall,
for
it
next
can't be
year,
dragging our feet, so.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, I got one more question before we go any out of this area. On, under wages, on 1,000, it went from 11.3% to 20.4 between the 2 papers that we got.
Where?
Under 5,100, under wages,
Yeah, but which department?
1455,
yeah, 1455, I'm sorry.
that's where we are.
Way over,
Right.
we were on one,
Because that is to adjust and the sheriff, because
was
the adjustment related to the patrol officers and everything else was,
that with longevity thing that we talked about that would put you in,
Oh,
I don't.
I remember,
Joe.
yeah,
no.
yeah, I know, I understand.
I know
what
it
you're
is
saying
now, yeah.
Yeah.
So I had to increase that to
Yeah.
what we were negotiating.
Yeah, for parity,
Yeah,
right,
okay.
good, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, so, we're 1 in the COPS Fast grant.
What's that?
1 in the COPS Fast grant, you'll adjust those numbers for us.
Okay,
And-
So the detectives department will stay the same, because you're keeping that new officer in there. So it's really the addition of the new officer and adjustment to wages associated with the ongoing negotiation.
right.
And the COPS Fast, yeah.
Well, I'm going down, cost basket.
Oh, okay,
Then you got patrol, those numbers are gonna change, so
Yeah,
I'm basically taking
Okay.
out the 3 patrol officers,
Yep.
moving one of those 3 down to cost fast.
Yeah.
So your
Yep.
fleet maintenance is going to change, those numbers are gonna change because of this change.
Right.
right,
The SO equipment's going to change because of this change. The civil will stay the same. The civil should have no impact based on what you've discussed so far. So the civil is, I guess, somewhat of a pass-through, they do bill for the services.
we're asking for 4 new vehicles, 2 brand new, but 2 to exchange out. 2 vehicles?
Now, the rotation is, currently, we would have to order 7 vehicles. We have a 3-year life expectancy. We've got, what, 20 in that?
Yeah, so in 3 year, yeah, so in 3 years, we usually put on, patrol usually puts on, we get longer life out of the detective vehicles. Patrol, after 3 years, they're pushing 110, 115,000.
So in this budget, you'll have 7 vehicles just for the rotation.
Okay, all right,
We had 4
three
from last
new
year, and 3,
vehicles
added
associated.
3 this year.
all right. Order the 10. Get those 10.
The problem is, right, so the rotation is what makes it successful.
Right.
Because of the way that we're going to be receiving is that you're going to get a batch, and they're all going to have to probably be replaced at the same time again. So you've got to come up, well, I've got to come up with a plan on how to stagger that, to break that back up into a rotation again.
Right,
And that's the trick.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
So if we approve that part, you're gonna come back with us with the numbers we need?
Wait,
Yeah,
I make a motion, we approve our discussion on
yeah,
the administrative.
Second.
with the changes. Okay. It's been moved and seconded with changes. Any discussion?
I think we beat that dead horse.
Yeah, we have.
All in favor?
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
and if you look at Madison, UT, and MEDA, those are passed.
Yeah. Right.
The savings that I said, for this fast, some of that's gonna go away.
Right.
So then, if you're okay with that, then we go on to corrections.
Okay.
Almost done.
Yeah. You know, we want to get together with the subdivision. You can. We have 3.
It hurts. Mine looked like yours, and it would hurt too.
I've never had this much paper in front of me.
Supporting Scott paper, even though they don't really make that paper.
Probably all otherwise Scott paper thing.
Okay. As I mentioned about the different buckets, the jail fund actually comes under a different tax cap. Our tax cap currently set in the statutes is $5,900,000. We can increase that by a minimal of 4%, or whatever our current growth factor is. Our current growth factor is 9.3, 9.4. So what I put in this plan is roughly a 9% increase. So what I put in for the tax cap for this budget is $6,431,000 roughly. With that,
Where are the corrections?
with that in there, based on the current budget, you still would need to put in a little over 2.2 million of undesignated fund balance to make it balance. Wage and benefit increases account for roughly 1.1 million of the roughly 2 million that the budget increased. Part of that is associated with the 5 heads that we did not budget last year. If you remember, the last couple of years, well, the commissioners know, but the last couple of years, the corrections staffing package requires 36 COs to meet their requirements. But because of the challenge of trying to keep the positions full, we decided that we would be aggressive and only budget 31 positions, assuming that they still can try to hire 36 at that point. So we took those out. In this budget, we put in those 5 positions. So in this budget is the 36 CO positions. Also, let's see. Also, in this budget is roughly $170,000 associated with the Quasi Act. I don't know if you're all familiar with that, where they feel that our CO officers are following the round of watch guards and that they should be paid overtime after 40 hours. Currently, we pay overtime greater than the 86 hours per pay period. So that change would require us to an increase of roughly $171,000.
Does that change come without a union negotiation?
It's still being fought. We're hoping that this goes away, and the union really doesn't have any control over this.
It's courts.
It's courts.
I just sent a bill this week to the feds for 92,000?
92,800.
For 92,800 for lawyer attorney fees, asking for them to reimburse that. I don't know the outcome of that, but I just sent the letter. They put together all the invoices that we've been paying to fight this case thus far. We put together a cover letter, I signed it, and we're waiting to hear what they have to say about that. They seem to be taking a not a real aggressive stance. They don't understand that even though we're just a dot on the map, this has national ramifications.
Unintended consequences?
And the reason we pay after 86 hours, that's by a CBA, the Fed saying after 400, we pay after 86 hours, only because that is what our collective bargaining agreement says.
It's also, SLA requirement for that type of position.
Yeah.
So it's not just by CBA.
Right, yeah, so FLSA says that you can work a certain amount of hours before you get compensated overtime, and we were in compliance with the FLSA. And 2 contracts ago with the corrections officers, we tried to get them to go to a 40-hour week, and they unanimously voted it down. So,
They like that little bit of OT?
what's that?
They like that little bit of OT? Is that what it was about?
So where the schedule goes, because a 40-hour week would be like the 8-hour days. Because 2 negotiations ago, they were complaining about that they were tired and burnt out. And we said, well, we'll offer you 8 hours a day. And they unanimously, because they went from they work 14 days a month if you go to a 40-hour week, you work to, you go to a 20-day.
Oh, less days, less complete days off,
Right.
Yeah,
full days off.
so, but that's, it is an active lawsuit that's going on, and we're fighting it, and we don't know what the outcome's going to be right now.
And wage rate adjustments account for 343,000 of the wage increase. Medical services have increased by 250,000. Electricity increased by 96,000.
Can I just make a comment on the
Sure.
medical?
You can speak.
The medical part of it, our medical did go up, that we are working, there is a bill in the legislature right now that I had a conversation with the chief of staff of the, chief of staff of the Speaker of the House. And what we're trying to dovetail into a bill that they're trying to pass that anyone that comes in the state of Maine has Maine care. So I don't know where that bill's gonna go, that'll be a fiscal note. But the conversation was is that when you come into the jail, you lose your Maine care. My argument is, if you've already been deemed to be on Maine care, why would you lose your Maine care? If they allow inmates to stay on Maine care while they're in the correctional facility, we then can turn around, bill the state for the Maine care cost, which will drive my medical bill down.
Right.
So that's what I propose to the Speaker's chief of staff. I don't know where that's going to go. But our medical has gone up.
Right.
In the works.
And they shouldn't take away the maid care once they come into the prison system. It's just crazy.
So that, it's less money at the state level for them to spend on something else.
I know.
They're already on the state, how you got there or how they designate,
Yeah.
Right.
that's a formula that's already in place.
Right.
But to take them off, that puts the cost onto the county to take
Exactly.
care of them
Right.
in the facility. So I'm arguing that, just leave them on, they're already there. You're not adding to the head count because the count's already there. And that way I could try to drive down some of these medical costs.
Not only that, if they have to go off it, then when they come out, they have to reapply and get back on it. So it costs them something to keep putting people on and off, I would think, too. So I heard Senator Collins was supposedly working on getting that through, but it's
Yeah, right.
not gone yet.
When I first took office, it would take you 2 weeks to get back on through the bureaucracy. Right now, we have a position inside the jail that's working with the inmates, so the day they get out, they get right back on the home care.
Right.
It's a huge roadblock, bed-to-bed transfers, release from jail directly to rehabs, throws a wrench in the
Throws a
whole
wicked
works.
wrench into it.
Yeah.
Where we've started this sublocade process, Maine Care does take care of the sublocade. So though we give the original shot inside the jail for the opiate addictions, if the shot's good for 28 days, then we work with the hospital, with the Bridgeover Clinic, is that they're then given to a PCP, which they will give the sublocade. But if that gap with the Medicaid causes all kinds of problems.
So who gets stuck with the bill? The patient?
We all get stuck.
Taxpayers.
Well, the taxpayer.
Either way.
Well,
It's where you want to get, it just doesn't make sense to me
no.
that you've already designated this person, for whatever reason, I don't even know what the criteria is, it's really irrelevant to me. You have a process to put people on Maine Care. Whatever that process is, if that person gets incarcerated, why would you take them on? Because you're driving the cost to the county. When they would be getting their medical anyway.
Yeah.
And that way we could try to my plan is to maybe eventually try to drive down our medical costs by that happening.
Yeah.
See, why they would do that is because it's less of a cost to the state if they're not on it during that period of time.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but Joe said they got more money they
But
can.
as Commissioner John, they're not going to go to the ER if they have a problem.
Right.
And that bill is gonna go someplace. And so what do you dilute your medical state hospitals because they have to absorb that cost? It doesn't make sense to me.
Doesn't make sense to me either, especially when the state doesn't hold themselves to the same standard they're holding you.
Doesn't need to make sense.
No,
There's a lot of people.
No, there's nothing there that makes sense.
Disappointed.
So I apologize.
It's your budget.
Well, I just wanted to say what's going on,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna cross our own.
We didn't-
yeah.
Heating oil, I'm gonna bring that down to $4. Legal fees increased by 70,000. They're currently over budget this year by roughly 74,000. So it's a increase there, but this is to bring it more in line with their current exposure. Capital increase. We've got an ongoing project at the jail currently that's actually underway to replace the locks in the camera system. We put 600,000 in last year's plan for that project. The project came in at roughly 850,000. So we put in 227,000 to complete that project in this budget. There is 220,000 in the budget for building, replacing carpet, flooring, dealing with the ceiling of the parking lot, and a sand salt shed. And there's the normal 40, it was 20,000 in prior years, but 45,000 to catch up from last year. We didn't actually put in any money for a capital vehicle. It's just their allotment to replace their vehicles, so there's 45,000 in that. And then the equipment reserve is set up 214,000. Unfortunately, the building is getting older, and things are starting to break. And years past, you can see in the outer years, it's, we've been only budgeting around 80 to 90,000. We're at a point where we can't do that anymore. As you would say, we push, keep the can as far as we can down the road.
Just a general question on electricity. All the electricity increases are solely because of rate increases?
Yes.
Okay, there's no,
Not usage. The CMP
Right.
has gone up from, we paid-
oh, we know.
and then our electrical rate.
Yeah.
We've actually, the project in the jail, we put all our lights to LED lights to reduce our costs,
Yep.
but when you go from 6 cents to 14 cents.
You're charging all those telephones and games that they play in.
PlayStation eats up a lot of electricity.
Yeah.
The IT services increased by 80,000, that is the transfer of cost from the IT department to the jail. We discussed that earlier,
Yep.
about how this cost is allocated. And then other increases of 75, so the total increase from budget to budget is roughly 2 million.
It's more than 2 million. The 2 million comes out of, you're balancing it with the overlay.
It's 2 million from budget to budget. You have to remember last year, we had set aside 780,000. So, of undesignated fund balance last year's budget.
Right.
So the increase for the undesignated funding is 1.4 million. we're utilizing 2.2 million to make it balanced, but it's an increase from last year's budget of only 1.4 million.
So what are we using from the,
Looks like this year we're
Undesignated.
break even. The jail, we set aside 782,000 this year's budget. The jail is running currently favorable by a little over 700,000. So I'm hoping by the end of the year, they are still favorable by roughly 782,000, so we don't have to utilize those undesignated fund balance to balance the budget. Those 782,000, they're gonna be rolled in to the, the 3 million that we have, we're gonna keep.
and we're going to fully fund the full 36 positions where we didn't last year. How much extra is that, those
5 positions?
those 5 positions?
5 positions is about 480,000.
Okay. It's one of the things I wanted to, last year I wanted to continue to fund those instead of doing that gambit, but we,
And those are
Well, so,
mandated kind of,
well, so that's a staffing package, right, that you need. We, last year, it was decided to try, to use a risk, is it called, or a risk, and leave those positions open. This year, though, we still have 8 openings.
Or 5,
What?
we're at 5 vacancies right now.
We have 7 people in the queue right now, so it's anticipated that, we just went back to 4 shifts after 3 years.
good.
And if we keep it stable for a while, it looks like we are going to fill those positions.
It looks realistic for this year.
good, nice. Good, that's good news, really. Yeah, so. Any concerns or questions about the jail, corrections? Seeing none, the motion to approve the corrections.
So,
second.
Any further conversation, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Good.
While it's fresh in mind, we're going to talk about the jail. This is what I want to
Thank you.
show you about the cap.
Oh, good, thank you.
Okay. See, if the budget stays the same, if you look, the top chart is basically what was presented last year. The middle chart is the one for this year. You basically, as you know, had a 2 million increase. If I use the 2.2 million of the roughly 3.1 million that we currently have for the undesignated fund balance, that's gonna leave us roughly 860,000 left over. The rule of thumb is we need to stay above, or stay with 20% in the undesignated fund balance. That
Right.
definitely brings us way below.
is that when you have a bond or on something, or is that anyway?
This
Anyway.
anyway, we try to keep the general fund at 20%.
Yep.
It's the good rule of thumb. They did tag it to the bond, but it's an industry norm. for-
Yeah.
So-
you want to say it, again, 1.1, well, a little over a million, if that's what you're talking about.
Yes, if you look down through, it actually as our budget increases, it's right down to FY 2025, assuming that the budget on average goes up 2.5%, which, 80% of your cost, 80% of your cost is labor, and the contract has 2.5% increase in it, so chances are it's gonna go up at least 2.5%.
That would be our minimum that we'd be looking at.
What's that?
That's our minimum we're looking at.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, to be able to bring the undesignated fund balance up to 15%, start working it back up, you would actually have to increase the tax cap from 3.4 to 9.4. So you'd have to increase it $3 million to start the process of building it back up to your 20%. See what I'm saying? And then the year after, you would only have to do a 2.5% increase. Then you could hold it steady for 2 years, but then the cost cap, catch up to you, and then you're gonna have to start increasing by 4%, 3.5%. At this point in time, I don't see any way we're not going to get out of going to the legislature to ask for, you know, an increase. Even if you cut $1 million out of the budget, you know, I did an example. Let's assume we could cut, basically, if we took those 5 heads back out and basically slashed the capital budget and lowered it by $955, which is not what I was suggesting. I'm just trying to show. I'm sorry. I'll get your copy. You're still gonna have to increase it by $1.4 million to be able to get it. So I don't see where we can get out of not going to the legislature next year to have that done. I don't know the process of that. You probably know a lot better than I.
I don't.
So, right now, so jails across the state, county jails, it's like, it's over $100 million. The governor, last year, in law, that the state had to provide $12.2 million. We always had to go back for supplemental in the second session. The governor, and we usually ended up with about 18.4 million, somewhere around there. In this last bill, the governor put in $20.2 million in the budget. The problem with that is that because of inflation and payroll, that 20.2, 20.3 million is not, it's not the same money, right? So, because they're all costs going up. We were, this session, through criminal justice, have asked and were successful in asking the governor to do a change package with her budget. We don't know what she's going to do with that, so, but they've asked her to do that. So what we are getting now, there might be a little bit more, right now, what they're looking at is an additional 1.4 million on top of that 20.3. It won't be a lot divided between 15 jails. There's Lincoln and Saginaw, share jail, two bridges. Now, we had, the MSA had put a package forward to the legislature the last session that would be a paradigm shift of what it would look like. When we did a snapshot, the state was actually going to have to pay more. And what it was that you were brought in on what we called a state charge. And a state charge would be a burglary, anything in simple terms, felony, any type of felony, which you could potentially, with a felony, end up in prison. We would bill the state for their bed days per inmate. They call it residence, but I refuse to say that. But the governor just said absolutely she was not going to do that because that was going to cost the state money. But that plan hasn't died away and it's still in the works in some ways. So I guess the long and short of it is I wanted to give you a little bit of history about the funding we get from the state and there there might, a change package might be putting in that would be a little bit more, but there's also this bigger plan, to change, a paradigm shift on how we look at state inmates.
And the assumptions that I put through basically say the revenue's gonna stay consistent. So by chance, the feds stop paying $200 a day, it would change the picture.
Well, our contract with the feds is coming up. We've had some healthy discussions, that the $107 that they pay us a day now is nowhere close to what it costs us, and it's exacerbated by the fact that we have this almost $100,000 legal fees and this potential payout for this quasi, I don't want to say violation, because I don't think we're in violation, but this concern. So the next time that we talk, those are all going to be part of that conversation as we try to develop a contract. I can tell you that I had a conversation with Sheriff Joyce in Cumberland County. I did provide him with a copy of it was a administrative judge decision, and he's actually speaking with his commissioners about not taking federal inmates just because of that. If that holds up those costs that we need to make sure with that. So there's a lot of moving parts right now.
This is gonna be my last.
Is there any, excuse me, Patrick, Department of Corrections, are they helping us backfill any of these expenses?
No. Short answer is no.
Probably no now, because I pissed them off Monday, but,
So we can have an offline conversation, but I do not, it is my experience, and maybe it's me, maybe I'm just an ordinary old guy, but my dealings with MDOC, though we have conversations, they're not user-friendly.
thank you, Patrick.
Now, this is the big picture. Of course, this doesn't include all the changes that were made today. It was based on what the budget was presented to you.
So when we change the jail to an Airbnb, when we change the jail into an Airbnb and give people
That's another conversation.
and give people the vacation experience of a jailhouse.
Okay, this chart shows in FY 2024, the budget that was presented to you was an increase of roughly 2.5 million or the 18.6%. This shows that the ARPA funds that were used in FY 2024 were the same as the ARPA funds that were in FY 2023. I utilized 275,000 under the adjustment column. That's basically undesignated fund balance of $275,000. We're increasing the allotment for the tax debt by $2,400,000. So at the end of FY 2024, the tax debt will be fully accrued for. It's FY 2025 and 26. You can see that by the big jump in the corrections cap to the 9.4 million, we're looking currently at estimating for another $2 million increase next year. We'll have savings in the undesignated fund balance and a little bit in the ARPA to try to offset that, but it looks like we're looking at another $2 million increase in FY 2025. In FY 2026, you're looking at another $2 million increase because all of your, all your ARPA funds and all your undesignated funds have been used up. Then after that, 2027, 28, 29, we get back to an even keel. So the next 3 years, I feel it's gonna be
Patrick, am I looking at the same sheet that you are on the
Yes,
screen?
where it shows FY 2025, 26, and 24 again. That's,
Mine just says 23 through 24. Maybe I don't have the whole thing on the screen.
our screen shows 24, 25, 26. I can scroll over more.
Yeah, maybe that's all I need to do. I know, it's okay.
Is that better?
No, I got the wrong thing here, but not to worry.
Okay. It's just more of a, keep this in mind when we're talking about
FYI.
this, or not. Okay. They'll hit you eventually.
Oh, I know, that's what we're trying to avoid is all of this. Been skirting this issue for years.
I think that's the problem with the jail. We've been kicking that can down the road for a long time.
Yeah.
It's just caught up to us.
Yeah.
And pile on inflation and
Oh, yeah.
everything
Yeah.
else.
No, Patrick told us.
Perfect.
we were gonna do this 3 years ago.
We should have done this.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
I think we're gonna need a bigger boat.
Bigger what?
Boat.
So much for,
I would like you all to consider at some point, because the majority of our payrolls, our budget for payroll, is, the county, I think, really needs to invest in doing a position study to find out what the starting wage would be, what is the ceiling for, this is the only place I've ever worked in my life that you get an increase by breathing. And I think we're doing ourselves a disservice because we're talking not real money now about the price range and the classifications of jobs. And I mean, that all has come from you, I'd like you to consider, and there's a cost to that, but I think the cost would eventually, it would more than pay for itself. And we'd have a document that we could actually go by, about how we pay a position. Because it shouldn't matter if you're a secretary down here in the county building, or at the sheriff's office, or, like, that job classification should be all the same across the board. 2 cents worth. We don't do that in this county.
Are you seeing that as a disparity from, this wage is too low compared to this one, or is it a competition thing? Is it a?
Well, yeah, there is disparity among the pay, because we've never sat down and defined what that position is worth. And if you're here for 40 years, and you get that 2.5 for breathing, you could, I don't know how the county can sustain long-term if we don't have a study to say what a position is worth. Because these salaries are just gonna go, they're gonna go up automatically because of the 2.5. And there's no position that has a ceiling,
Right.
and they shouldn't.
No. Yeah.
Other
Well,
than,
and outside of the building, there isn't one either, because with minimum wage, it's going up every single year, same thing. So everything is just climbing and climbing and climbing.
right, right now, we have no document to say what a job is worth.
Usually, a job description has a low range and an upper range. And typically, if you're doing your job, you're gonna be mid-range. But currently, we have job descriptions, but we have no job ranges.
Right.
Just something to consider moving forward, a thought.
Oh, it needs more than just being considered, I agree with you. So,
I just think it's good business.
and how we fit it into this budget, it'll be anybody's guess, but,
Really, if you're willing to do that, what you do is just fit in the study. It'll probably, ballpark figure, cost, I don't know, 50 grand to have the study done. What they would do is they take, you have a third party, outside company,
right.
take your job descriptions, and then do the legwork.
Average it around the state, yeah, New England maybe even.
Well, there's two sides to that coin. So if, for instance, you cap somebody's wages, they're not gonna be here for 30 years anymore, because they won't get anything higher, and if their cost of living is going up, they're not gonna stay. So I guess they tried that in Skowhegan, and it didn't work.
It isn't
So
working.
I think you just have to kind of look at the big picture too, because if you cap somebody's wages and they can never get anything else, they'll leave.
Well, the
You
big,
don't
so the
have
big,
30
but the big,
years.
the big difference is you've got the public sector and the private sector, right? You know, in the private sector, you can increase the cost of your goods or your services to make up the difference. Here, you're forcing the taxpayers to
Right.
handle it.
But-
Big
But you
difference,
won't- But you
big
won't
difference.
keep people if you cap them off,
But you're not really capping.
because how are they gonna afford their inflation?
Right, but
costs?
you're not capping it, you're setting a higher lower. Each year, that higher lower is adjusted by the cost of living.
Right. The cost of living stays in place.
Right, you're just saying that a position has to be in this ballpark. You can't be paying the position over that ballpark. It moves, it's not like you.
It's not a static, it's not a
Right.
static document.
and that would be one of the things that the study would illuminate.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of state employees that have limits on how much they can make. And if they reach that maximum and they decide it's not enough, you know, sometimes they do have to go back to another job, or sometimes they think, gee, the benefit package and other aspects of the job are so great that I have no intention of leaving.
Right. And that used to be the big difference between public and private sector was the job security and the benefits. You know, keep people in place, and maybe the wages weren't the same. But now it's all the same, so it's a mess.
You think that 50,000 would do it?
I have no idea. I just threw 50 out there, it may cost 100. I know it's not gonna probably cost 100. Because you get a reputable company to do it.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
have, do you have the ability to, I guess, find a couple of companies, just to kind of get a ballpark idea of what,
Well,
that was probably in your,
and if we're going to move forward with this, what I would ask to do at this point in time is to look at the $50,000, but take 25 of that and put it into the commissioner's budget, and 25 of that and put it in the HR budget for that study. Because those are the two major departments. I'd want to involve finance to some degree in that as well, but I don't know, we could plug in, make it 2020 and 10, but,
I would personally put it all in HR. It's an employee function of HR. It's not against anybody in the HR, but I mean,
no, it's all right, that's fine too, I just
but
throw that out
go
there.
and see what a realistic number would be, because you still
Right.
probably have to go out.
well, that's the,
Let's not put anything anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Get it.
exactly, yeah, I mean, we're looking at an 18% increase as it is, adding more.
Anymore is not good.
Let's find out what the number is first before we start throwing,
Well, I just want to know where we put it in as well.
Have a similar issue. Are we the only county that does this helter skelter approach to
Well, I don't have enough.
wages?
right? Yeah, there might be some other counties that all chip in and pay for a study that does it statewide.
Opiate money settlement.
Yeah.
This is our plan, what we're going to do.
Oh, great.
Super.
All right?
Right.
This is what they're trying to do.
Opiate money.
Oh, I thought you were asking for more money.
So, I'm assuming.
It's, this is what I want you guys,
Must be a
Thank you
lot of
very
money,
much.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
pages here.
It's just,
And you deserve that money.
so the grant is specific to.
That's why we went.
So we got a settlement, right? There's a settlement that comes to the county, Pat can tell you more about it. I thought it was important that I put a plan together, what we have money, we are using that.
You are,
We have positions right now that are grant funded, where the grant's running out, and this is a good segue that we can keep these people in place that are helping.
is this helping them when they leave your, is this helping when they leave your facility?
Yeah, so we, one of the program, we have an individual that
Okay, let's make this meeting 15 minutes.
I'm all about that.
Have any questions, we're free to.
So we're going to take a recess until 3 o'clock.
Okay. I get a
5 minutes and 30 seconds.
This is,
That's trash.
I'll do this under commissioners. This is to do with, everywhere, fishing game.
Well,
What do they want? Is this?
They got 1,452 acres in Lexington, they're gonna convert into, deer, game yard, and,
Oh, good.
yeah, it's already a done deal with the families.
Absolutely.
Oh, you're just going to report on it?
Yeah, because, I called a lady up and I asked her, and I said, no public hearing? She said, no. She said, don't have to, because the landowners have been notified, and they have the same, they both have two different landowners, but they brothers.
Yeah.
And the attorney is doing this in tree growth, and so we're gonna have 14.
Oh, my goodness.
to accept the minutes of March 1st, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Resolution 23-052 to accept the minutes of March 3, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It's done, thank you. Finance reporting.
I think you've heard enough from me.
But we're all shipshape, eh? Okay, thank you. Administrator report.
I don't have anything new.
Thank you. Department heads, who do we have in here? We have
Mike Pike.
Mike Pike. You're good? Well, and we've got Frank.
I'm here. I'm really busy. We're back to full-ish staff upstairs. We actually had Paul Kavanaugh was kind enough to come back Friday days as a special prosecutor, and he's on day 2 of 3, and my other 2 prosecutors are working away diligently.
Sheriff?
We're very busy, as I think I explained earlier, but we handled 368 calls of service last week.
Unbelievable. Thank you. Corey?
We've had a very favorable response going back to the 4-shift rotation. This is the best position we've been in probably the last 3 years. After today's meeting, we'll be at 5 corrections officer vacancies, and as of this morning, there were 5 in the queue, various stages of the process. Other than that,
Good to hear. Thank you. Pavel?
So we're gonna post for those 2 positions tomorrow. I'm kind of still reviewing the job description, so I'll have it ready for tomorrow morning. And this week, we have this business practice review with Essential Square. So from Monday, we have a teams working together and building that application. And last meeting is tomorrow, on Thursday. So that's the big piece, and we have multiple projects. Actually, all the cameras and access control has been ordered for the jail. So hopefully we'll get that soon, so we can start working on that.
Very good. I have a question. Do you assign to maintenance cleaning the lenses of the cameras outside?
We have a contractor that did that last time for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just paid somebody to wash them all. We-
But,
Well, they seem to need it again, but,
We don't really have the equipment here to handle it.
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, just curious. Thank you. David?
I have 2 things I want to bring to your attention. One, actually, we're going to need a decision on today, because the deadline is Friday. The Land for Maine's Future program is looking at buying 1,452 acres in Lexington. It's privately owned land right now, owned by kind of a timber company, DES and Gas Timberlands. But they're selling these lots, multiple lots combined. And it came to the attention of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, which the program runs through. And they're merely looking for a letter of support, saying the county supports them buying this property for Maine futures. There's a deer yard on it with deer winter. Most of it's been harvested previously, except for, I assume, the deer yard. You know, so from my standpoint, I don't see a reason why it's not a good idea. But they're just looking for a little letter of support, and basically it's up to you guys to say yes or no.
So question for you, currently this 1,452 acres is being taxed, property tax.
Yep, tax.
And if Land for Maine's Future buys it, we will no longer receive revenue from it.
Correct. The land is tax
thank you.
value, they pay about $1,550 a year. That's what they pay on those acres, because it's just basically timberland.
It's under tree growth, isn't it?
Major loss for us. Just minor.
Still a loss. And regardless of a letter in support or opposition, they're still going to move forward with it.
Problem. But but I'm not familiar with them. I know what they do, but you're more familiar with your Augusta background. and certainly-
Yeah.
I spoke with the people at the snowmobile club and
Yep,
the town office, and they're all for that. It gives them some access to land that they're having a hard time getting access to.
yeah, there's been a lot of problems in the area between Lexington, Concord, and over to Bingham with snowmobile access and people trying to block off state routes. And it's
Right.
created a lot of problems. This will be beneficial for them.
Yeah.
It's as Commissioner Stetka said, yes, there's a little bit of a tax loss, but it's minor compared to the tax value of all the UTs. In a town, it has more impact if part of it becomes untaxable.
Right.
But for the entire UTs, you're 0.000001%. It's a very small amount.
No reservations based upon the fact if it becomes property of the state, will people still have access to it, or will they finagle it so we don't? And
Yeah.
Well,
Did they give you an outline of what the access will be?
Well, it's for Maine's future program, so
Right.
it's open to the public. They're not gonna gate it off such as a private individual could, who bought all this land.
Right,
They could gate
right.
it off, post it all, no hunting, and do.
Okay, so they didn't give you any specifics, 'cause, okay,
No,
so,
no.
okay, so it'll fall under the same guidelines as the rest of their program,
Yeah.
I think, which in some cases, yes, access, it's not gated, but there's certain times of the day, certain times of the year, certain vehicles you can't put
Yeah,
on
they
it.
not allow.
In some places, you can't even walk your dog on it, stuff like that, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
But they'll allow hunting and fishing.
no access to hunting or fishing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I assume, yes.
Well, the deer yard, I mean, yeah, it depends, I mean, it'll probably be,
I think they actually mentioned that in
Right.
their.
Yeah, there's a deer yard in there.
The lady specifically, she said, there's brooks and streams in there, and hunting, fishing, and whatever you gotta do.
Yeah, it's for the main public citizens, so they're not gonna gate it off or anything like that.
right, they're not gonna gate it, right, but they can limit access by saying you can't go on it for X amount of years.
They lose their- they-
Controlled by,
they lose
controlled by the state government.
non-taxable status.
What's
Same
that?
as Somerset Woods. If they prevent a citizen from walking on their property, they lose their status. They do.
There's a ton of land up around Abbott that is completely restricted, but anyway, right.
I don't know anything about the land up in Abbott, but is it possible that Abbott property had deed restrictions prior to the purchase and those
Oh,
stayed?
I don't know, I don't think it has anything to do with us signing the letter or not.
Yeah, but are we in
If you guys want to
favor
sign a letter, go ahead.
Well, let me
Yeah.
just say this. I can check with her
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that all public access is granted, that there are no restrictions on it. So if we want to go hunt on it, or go fish on it, or anything like that, that it's open to the public
Well,
use.
Right.
well, let's,
And as long as
Yeah,
it's approved,
let's just say that if that we incorporate that in our letter, that we support this as long as A through Z.
okay.
Can we
Yeah, I'll
get
make
that?
sure that
Yeah.
that's all open.
If,
for-
yeah, if she could just email you where that stuff is and just forward it on, that'd be great.
Okay, I will absolutely do that.
Thank you.
So once I get that approval, I can do the letter and say that the commissioner,
Yeah, I make a motion to send a letter.
okay.
Is there- so I don't think we need a motion, I think it's just a consensus here
Yeah.
to do that.
Consensus, either one, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, the second issue I have is nothing that needs to be decided today, but it's going to be on the agenda for the next meeting. And I just want to make you aware of what happened in Rockwood. Some of you may already know this, I think I mentioned this with Sid before, but we had a person who went through the ice on Moose Head, and his sled went down, but he climbed out of the water onto the edge of the ice, but was not responding to the first responders trying to get him away from the edge. So this guy's friend told our fire chief to use his sled to go up and try to get him. And unfortunately, our fire chief took a other person's sled, and he put that through the ice. So right now, that snowmobile is sitting on the bottom of Moose Head Lake. And let me pass these out to you, because you might as well see the whole chain and the description of events. You're gonna have to read these from backwards to forwards, because it's an email chain. And on the last page is the Facebook entry that Rockwood Fire Department put in. So our decision is, what are we going to do about it? The fire department's insurance doesn't cover the price of the sled. What we're thinking about doing, and this is the fire chief's recommendation, is we reimburse the guy for a sled, basically buy it from him, and get it out of the lake, repair it, and use it as a sled for the fire department. He's talked to the engineer mechanic up there, and the guy thinks it's probably fixable. It's not a lot of money. It's, I think it was in 2005. I've got the description, the VIN in here. Valued about $7,000. We have funds in the capital line for the Rockwood Fire Department that we can use if that's the decision of the commissioners. But you can read through these at your leisure. You don't need to worry about it right now. But I'll have this on the next agenda, and we can address possibly what our decisions or our choices are. But I wanted you to be aware of what's happening.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other department heads? Oh, HR? You got nothing, okay. Any other department heads I may have missed or hanging out around the corner that wants to come in? No, I see none. Okay, unfinished business, non-new business, resolution 23053 to approve the receipt of the FY22 Homeland Security Grant in the amount of $136,762.40.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none?
What are we using the money for?
Security.
In your packet, a list of projects that would get done. That makes
That's what that
sense.
was, yeah, okay.
That'd be in here.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, Mike Smith submitted it, and there was a list of projects in there,
Oh, my God.
I believe.
Mike's not here to share that with us.
Fairfield PD, Scouting PD. Violent extremist training.
Where is it? Oh. Aha, oh, yes. You can add a snowmobile to that.
Just a quick question on these projects, is it that money would be divvied out between the 9?
I would suspect so.
Usually each project has an amount.
Yeah, they don't have amounts.
So when they put in for the grant, they say that we're gonna need X amount of whatever.
Submits for the grant.
Yeah. Any questions or all in favor? Any opposed? Do you want to weigh in as a yay or a nay?
Yay.
Yay, okay, we're good. So that is approved. Resolution 23054 to approve the hire of Reagan Havasi as a full-time dispatcher for the Somerset County Regional Communications Center.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Good, thank you. Resolution 23055 to approve the resignation of Catherine Burke as dispatcher for the Somerset County Regional Communications Center.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? In favor? Let's go. Resolution 23056 to approve the promotions of Scott Libby and Charles Poisoner to the position of Shift Commander Sergeant for the Somerset County Jail.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Resolution 23057 to approve the resignation of Ashley Hunter as Correction Officer for Somerset County Jail.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Go. Resolution 23058 to approve the following correction officer hires for Somerset County Jail: Derek McCarthy, Kagan Wyman, Kyle Smith, Brandon Crone, Christopher McLaughlin.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Resolution 23059 to approve the job posting for 2 system support specialists.
So moved.
Second.
This is IT, so.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Resolution 23060 to approve the resignation of Sheena Boone as victim witness advocate for the Somerset County DA's office.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Resolution 23061 to approve the job posting for a victim witness advocate for the Somerset County DA's office.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Capital reserve expenditures, unorganized territory, warrants. Resolution 23062 to approve the treasurer's warrants for the general fund, Somerset County Jail, and UT, unorganized territory, in the amounts of $111,639.14 for the general fund, $102,980.03 for the Somerset County Jail, $68,909 for 53 cents for the UT, $17,842 for TIF tax revenue, and $1,500 for TIF community benefit, for a total of $302,870.70.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Okay, miscellaneous discussion items, commissioners only? Nothing? Nothing? I have nothing, thank you. No public hearing, public comment?
Just a quick question, did we decide on when the next budget meeting was gonna be?
No, we haven't.
Too late.
We can do that, we're not done yet. Public comment, when would be good for us?
It's good for,
No.
I can have everything ready, at least by the end of this week, so whenever you wanna meet again, it's fine with me.
Well, I think we'd meet after the budget committee meets, or meet with them?
You gotta clear it up with them.
We're not finished.
We haven't seen we haven't seen the final, so,
Usually, right after he puts everything together
Yeah.
with the changes, at the next meeting, you approve it to go to the budget committee.
the next meeting.
Okay, so basically, whatever changes you mentioned today is the final item.
Right.
I think so. We'll look at that and do a review.
Okay.
So,
Make a change.
I think we can still do that on our normal schedule. I don't know if we have to come in early for that,
No,
so,
basically, I'll have it ready to put into your
yeah, great.
folder. You guys just, it's pretty simple, all I gotta do is approve and pass it on to the.
Yeah.
You don't even have to use the amounts.
Well, we want to look at
I'm
everything.
just saying, in
Yeah.
the resolution, you don't even need to have it.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's the final resolution after the budget committee.
Exactly, thank you. Good, thank you for reminding us, too. We'll do that next, put that on the agenda for our next meeting. Excellent. Any more public comment? Executive session, none. Motion to adjourn.
Amen.
Thank you. I think you'll make it in time for your Zoom at 5.
Yeah, I got time.
Oh, don't forget to sign the warrants, gentlemen.
Oh, yes. Where are they?
She's got some hires over there.
Get her done. No, that was not. Good job. So,
Yeah, okay.
Go back to Scott when you're done.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to be here for a while. so.
Bunch of people just back and forth and. Time for nap this?
No, I've got to go home, change, and head to Madison.
yeah, we have to talk with parents.
Budget in Madison?
Unfortunately, I
Whether or
get
not we can
jump.
Budget in Madison or just
hire
phone?
both positions right now?
Oh,
Or can we hire one
nice.
and wait till the next
Yeah.
budget? He said he's.
Yeah, so one of
going to see if he
the
has money to
concerns
get
is,
them
because
both
it's
on
a
board
deer
right
yard,
away.
right? So the whole idea is to grow the deer habitat. Well, how do you do that and allow hunting on it?
Leanne to hold.
Well, the hunting is before the deer yard anyway.
Make sure we have the money.
The deer doesn't, the deer won't yard until after hunting season
It's
anyway.
on my desktop.
Yeah, but it was.
Right, but if there's no deer to yard, there are not as many deer to
I
yard.
can email
But
it.
anyway, so with my experience with Lands for Main Future, number one, they totally screw the local taxpayer over and over.